don't recognize workload identity practices. And I see Arndt. Arndt, are you here? Yes.
Yes.
Uh,
So can I just grab the screen or?
yes, you can. If you're able to, yes. Otherwise, I will set myself up and share. All right. And I will allow. All right.
Thank
You should
you.
have permission.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I recycled some slides. So maybe some of these things it doesn't really fit, but yeah. So I'm coming from the IETF. There's a working group there focusing on workload identity and multi-system environments that got created, I think, a year ago. And we kind of are a group of folks that kind of used to be related to auth, or like we're still kind of related to some other folks. And we are kind of focusing on non-human workload identity. We are collaborating with OAuth and also with CNCF project called Spiffy, if you're familiar. And in our current charter, we're looking at a few things. One is like a workload identity architecture, common architecture, defining terminology. One is about securing service traffic. That is mainly about getting rid of bearer tokens and getting to proof of possession tokens for workload to workload authentication. There's work about token exchange. And then there's one document, and that's why I'm here today, that talks about workload identity practices and a bit about how workload identity is used today, where it's all been seen and how it's been used and what are the common pitfalls. Yeah, so this document kind of looks into what are existing practices, how is workload identity used, and Kubernetes is in there as well, along with build system, cloud workloads, and also Spiffy. Yeah. And yeah, it's like kind of an anti-goal to define something new. It's more like kind of to document, hey, this is workload identity. This is how it's been used. You may use these tokens to kind of federate to other authorization systems. And then also there's like this notion of you get something issued and it somehow needs to make its way to the workload. In Kubernetes speak, like protected service account token volumes, and all these sorts of things. And what are their common pitfalls you need to be aware of? That, for example, your tokens don't get grabbed by logging systems and show up in logs, for example. So there's this common pattern. This is the common one. We then also have like more concrete Kubernetes terms in the document as well. But there's this common pattern that you have some sort of workload platform. Can be Kubernetes, can be a cloud provider, can be GitHub, for example, that has some credential that is issued by the platform and gets either provisioned in the workload or the workload is able to request it. And then this credential is often presented as an assertion towards other authorization services that are in some external domain. For example, AWS assume role with web identity, and you get back an access token. With that access token, your workload is then able to upload something to an S3 bucket, for example, or access some CRM software and perform its tasks. And this pattern is kind of seen in Kubernetes, GitHub, CI/CD, cloud providers, Spiffy, and so on. And we kind of want to acknowledge its existence and document it and talk about it. Yeah, as I said, it's like these platforms and this common pattern more or less applies to all. And there's probably a few I don't know about, but yeah. Then about credential issuance. I believe you guys probably know more about this than I do. But we kind of see three common patterns there. One is environment variables. Kubernetes is like like the service account token secrets mounted as env. There's files like local file system, volume mounts, sorts of things. And there's local APIs. Token request API, Spiffy has this. There's this instance metadata pattern cloud provider tend to deploy. Yeah, and we kind of also want to kind of highlight that, like, hey, for example, access control is a very important aspect here. And if you use environment variables, you don't get to have any access control. But if you use local APIs, you get like the highest level of access control, and files are somewhat in the middle. Yeah, stuff like this. Yeah, so for us, we want to document these things, and for us, Kubernetes is a very common workload entity platform or workload platform. And we kind of wanted to reach out and ask what you think about this, if you are willing to kind of put your experience in it, if there's stuff you believe should not be highlighted or specific to Kubernetes or broader pattern. And then also if you see value in, or like if there's something in Kubernetes as you sig-auth kind of feel like changing in the future that may be in this document, but there's also like this way that Kubernetes service account tokens as today are bearer tokens and can be stolen and used, and stuff like this. So we kind of wanted to just give an intro what we are doing, and just, yeah, this thing exists, and yeah, review or contributions, etc. would be very welcomed. Yeah, and that's all I have today.
Well, my first thought is that it's common used, but I think that we should have a proxy to get a centralized way to fulfill the wild GWT from would say a seal on seal pattern from a secret management or token management external of Kubernetes, of etcd Kubernetes, I mean, exactly. And the second thing I think is that through the CKS, the best pattern, we don't use the auto-mount service account through service account or in pod, for example. And it's something that we should, would say, avoid for from this, from what you present. Okay. That's my first thought. But if Kubernetes with the auth group would be interested into, I would say, an implementation in Kubernetes of secret management outside of etcd, it's something that would be really great from a perspective of getting this infrastructure with better security as we currently get.
Yeah, so as I said in the beginning, like this working group is it's in the early stages, just got funded last year, or maybe 1.5 years ago. But there's a lot of these discussions happening. We also talk about key distribution, about the way tokens should be provisioned, as I said, to highlight it a bit. There's a token exchange group that, for example, looks into what if a workload requires an X509 credential format, but only has a short access token. How can this exchange have been happening? Or you have an Kubernetes protected service account token, but you need an access token for a cloud provider. That's also some sort of exchange. And that is something that is, for example, been worked on in the auth group. That's cloud providers have different things, but for example, Azure uses the assertion flow, AWS web assume role with web identity, and there's also changes happening, and we look at it concretely from the workload perspective, the like non-human factor of it. And like in general, if there's things you want to work on, and also from a standards perspective, which I believe you would be interested in, because Kubernetes also looks into integration, and people who deploy Kubernetes mainly want to integrate that into their environments. Yeah, stuff is happening there. Yeah, so like in general, if you feel like there's standard needs for your work you want to do, that would be a good place.
It's something I present myself. We don't know each other. It's I have come last meeting 2 weeks ago on the subject of hierarchical namespace, And what we are going to do, we are coming with Vincent here from French state, and we're working for French state, and we are going to make a sovereign distribution of Kubernetes based on Kubernetes vanilla. And we are going to fulfill it with, we'd say, we're going to offer a cluster, we would say control plane as a service, but we offer namespace as a service. And from this perspective, we are going to redefine the object namespace. And we will be the provider of this namespace, and the user will be the administrator of the namespace inside the namespace. And from this perspective, we are going to help him through the authentication through OIDC and GWT. And we are going to offer also a sovereign way to store confidential data through secrets and other things through this kind of, and we are going to develop this from a private cloud perspective, from an air gap environment, and not from a cloud public. Exactly. That's why I can, and this distribution will be open source through the Apache 2 license. And it's something that we are going to build for the end of the this year.
Yeah, like we're not looking directly into, we don't want to get too much into Kubernetes notions. We kind of want to look at it from an abstract point of view. That's why, for example, the Kubernetes specific terms like kubelet, etc., they is all out of the normative section in the appendix. But we kind of want to acknowledge that these patterns, like environment credential, job token, and environment variable, for example, exist, and there's these certain pitfalls you need to look into. We also have security considerations in there that, for example, says, hey, it is very important that issuer, subject, and audience are in these tokens and that they are validated, because if any of those are not validated, you may end up accepting tokens that were not supposed to be accepted, and stuff like this. And I believe you folks have a lot of context. And for example, I love the way that Kubernetes invalidates or binds the token to the lifecycle of the actual workload, which
exactly,
from what I know, is you're the only ones that do that. And that's also something we kind of highlighted in there and said and called out and said, like, hey, this is actually great. And yeah, so if you have any more ideas, kind of want to discourage a certain thing, see a certain security highlights, it's all feedback that would be very welcomed here. And we also noticed actually people coming to us with this document, for example, CI/CD systems, and saying like, hey, we want to add identity to our platform. We looked at your document and it helps us, and how should we do it? So there's also like value to actually improve the ecosystem.
Yes, we will provide our, we'd say, piece of architecture on it. No problem with that. We just currently we are going to be validating it through our state authority on this, and we will, as we are going to open it as open source project, we will give it to the CNCF for an input on the infrastructure if you need of Kubernetes if you need.
Thank you.
It's normal like this that we build open source projects. I would like to know the last time that we meet for the subject on hierarchical namespace. I think Arnold and Jordan, I don't know if you were there the last time, and I don't remember the right name, sorry, as we just met once. and it's something about the hierarchical namespace. One of those you should have asked if the Google maintainer wants to keep the ownership of the project, or from our perspective, can we fork it and take it the ownership, and how we don't use a hierarchical namespace and we develop our own project directly. That was the three options that we discussed last time. I would like to get some information, if you have some, around it.
Yeah, I reached out to the maintainers that I could contact and confirmed that they are not actively maintaining the project, and haven't been for some time. So they were actually going to open a pull request to remove their names from the maintainers list, just to clarify the current state. So from what I can tell, there are no active maintainers of that project.
So how can we competitive for this to be one of these maintainers?
Well, I guess it's sort of a question for discussion whether we think that resurrecting a project from being effectively unmaintained makes sense, or if it should be archived and people who are interested in making use of that direction effectively fork it and rename the API to their own group name.
I totally agree.
I think it makes more sense without being able to actually have some kind of a handoff. I think that the archive approach makes more sense and better indicates where the project is.
I totally understand, and it was my would say hopes on this. Okay, so we are going to fork it, and we are going to develop it, and also to offer it on the community of open source.
So I think I agree with you, David. Jordan, are you in agreement? So I think if we are in agreement, then we can probably start that process, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's difficult to transition an unmaintained project and sort of resurrect engagement and handoff at the same time. So I'd be in favor of archiving it and clarifying the current state, and even making suggestions for anyone who wanted to use it and develop it, specifically around using it as is, or if they want to make changes, they should probably rename the API to their own domain that they coordinate under. Yep.
Totally. And we are going to develop some more functionalities, and also we are going to present them here in the next step.
Good. Okay. So yeah, I think we can, I guess, continue that discussion we had on the mailing list to make sure the I guess not really the maintainers, but people who used to maintain it and are still technically named as the maintainers are aware of our next steps, I guess.
Okay. I'm going to tell it to my sponsor, and I will come in 2 weeks to inform you the organization and how we are going to develop it, and what functionalities and the roadmap and functionalities that we are going to maintain through this project. Thank you first. I'm happy to be on board.
Sorry, I think all of us were, or at least Rita and myself and Anish were pretty late joining. I think that was all on the agenda, right? I think it was pretty light this week. Sorry, David, that you had to take
That's
lead.
fine. That's why we have the backups. Yes, I believe we are done with the agenda, and the other item got moved up until it could be rejiggered somehow.
If maybe we could take a
Okay.
minute and set up a review section for the pod certificate stuff. I think it's getting very close to where it's reviewable.
The thing David had sort of volunteered to be the lead for the API review of that piece, right? With you to
This was
hear.
the one I reviewed like 5 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay. Ping me when it's been repushed, and I'll have a look again.
Okay.
David, do we want to set up a synchronous meeting to have that? I mean,
Offered
you can
last
certainly
time,
review it.
no one did it. But I'm happy to offer it again. And Friday's pretty open if it can be ready in time.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Who should I invite? So David, myself.
You can invite me, invite Standa, and I guess Anish and anyone else here who's interested.
Okay. Standa's in Poland.
Yeah, so he's
Okay.
basically the earliest in your day that you can manage.
Yeah. All right.
Cool. I guess speaking of like caps, I see. Rita, are you on the call? Actually, I don't know if Rita's still here. I think Rita dropped. I wanted to bring one thing up real quick because Rita had brought it up to me, and it was like the first time I heard of it. And I'll paste this link in chat real quick, and I guess David, I guess since you're hosting, if you want to like share it real quick, I guess. This was brought up to me as a DRA feature that is another one apparently that needs sig-auth review, but it's like 2 days ago was the first time I heard that it existed. Does anybody know what this is? / what does it mean for sig-auth?
This is different than the admin access Boolean.
Yep, it's something completely different, even though it sounds almost the same.
Oh, no, I hadn't seen this or heard about it.
Yeah, so I think they want an API review. I don't know of what. I don't know what it does. Yeah, I told them it was kind of late, but I guess we can try. But yeah, I just didn't know if any of us had even seen this thing before or knew what it meant.
I have not, and I also can't figure out how to work the share button. So
Okay, it's fine. Zoom keeps changing the UI like every update, and I can never find it myself either. But it's I'll put it in the agenda just so it's there as a thing. I plan on trying to look at this in the next bit. If other folks have cycles, I think it would be helpful, but I don't like. I think we need an API review. So like either David or Jordan, if either one of you has cycles to.
I'll say not likely. I'm devoting my effort for declarative validation, and I had actually bet on Tahir not getting the push redone at this point, but I will come back to it.
That's so mean.
That is so mean, David. Why this is a recorded call. I can't.
Mean but accurate.
So just truthful, not there. So
I
no,
probably
have
won't
time.
have time for the review, but I opened up the KEP and it looks like it's a cluster scoped type that like is used to overlay attributes. So like conceptually, it's maybe similar to some of the like persistent volume or CSI driver, like cluster scoped types that a cluster wide user can fiddle with. So I didn't look at the details at all, but if it's following patterns like that, that seems a lot less weird than something special and escalating inside a namespace. So if Tim or someone is doing the API review and it's following pretty normal cluster scoped patterns, that's less scary and weird.
Okay. Yep, that's fine. I just want to bring it up. Let's see, we got half an hour, but if we don't have any more topics, we can take that half an hour back. Totally fine. Does anybody else have anything? Any last minute caps anyone else wants to throw at us before we have we got 3 weeks, I think, if we freeze from like
I have
yesterday.
one, maybe still related to pod certificates, but a question for you, Mo. I know you really want per signer restriction. I've put in a place for that to happen, but I'm wondering, for this first alpha pass, would you be okay if all certificates were restricted to 24 hours?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That doesn't bother me. Yeah, for me, it's what I want to make sure is when this thing is, sort of beta-ish land, that the operator of the environment can very tightly control the length of these things. They can make assertions about them.
Okay.
I think we can leave it there then. I think, David, you have to end the meeting because you're host.
Gotcha. Oh no, Jordan's technically the host. He found the button first.
Oh,
Let me see if I can figure out how.
bye.
Thank you all.
See you.